Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, our viewers online, on TTT YouTube channel, on the ministry's Facebook page, and welcome to the fourth installment of edUTalk. This evening we are completely virtual, and we have therefore opened the conversation to the national population, Trinidad and Tobago, and even beyond. We want to get straight into this evening's program as I invite the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Education, Ms. Simone Williams, to give welcome remarks.
Dr. the Honorable Nyan Gatsby-Dolly, Minister of Education, the Honorable Lisa Morris-Julian, Minister in the Ministry of Education, Dr. Peter Smith, Chief Education Officer, Mr. Aaron Ramartan, Director School Supervision, Ms. Carol Bagwandin, Director Early Childhood Care and Education, Dr. Ayanka Nurse Carrington, Manager Student Support Services Division, stakeholders in the education system, followers on the live stream on Ministry of Education's Facebook page and TTT's YouTube page, our moderator, Ms. Neil Tobias. Good evening. Welcome to the fourth installment of the edUTalk Forum. This evening, we are engaging the wider national public via a virtual forum as we discuss the business of education. The team met with principals, supervisors, and the communities of Carapichaima and El Dorado during this week. On our fifth and last stop tomorrow, we meet with students of government and government-assisted schools to hear their views on the plans and initiatives being implemented that have emanated out of almost 3 years of consultation. We all have a critical role to play in not only educating the children of this nation, but in preparing them to be leaders of tomorrow. Transformation is not an easy task, and change is not an easy outcome, but it is achievable. The education policy and its sub-policies are living, breathing documents that require all of us in this virtual room. Our international, regional, and national developmental needs are changing, and we must prepare our children for this. I therefore ask that you take advantage of the opportunity presented to add meaningful insight and constructive discourse as the ministry and all its stakeholders seek to prepare our nation's children for life. I look forward to the discussions this evening and again welcome you to the edUTalk Virtual Forum.
Thank you very much, PS. We go directly into our first presentation, which will be delivered by the Honorable Nyan Gatsby-Dolly, Minister of Education. Immediately after that, we will have the panel come on board, and then we will get into discussions. So, Minister, I hand over to you.
Thank you so much, Rodel. And it's a pleasure to be here once again, addressing the national community, this time in our virtual forum, as we speak to the Education Policy 2023-27. And we've been speaking now for quite some time. We had our Principals Forum on Monday, and we were able to speak to the national public physically, as well as have a live stream on Tuesday and Wednesday. And now we are a totally virtual presentation today. So we are looking forward to this conversation as we begin our presentation. So we are dealing with the National Education Policy 2023-27, a very important document, and it's important for everyone in this nation to understand what we are doing to transform education and how we intend to get there, and to see themselves playing a role in all of us being transformed. What's our why? That's another way of asking, why are we doing what we are doing? Why do we at the Ministry of Education do what we do? Why do our teachers or principals? Why are we doing this? And to understand the deep underpinnings, we look back at what happened just when we were about to become a nation. On August 30th, 1962, our first Prime Minister, on the cusp of our independence, brought our young people together. And at that rally, he gave an exhortation, a charge to the young people. And this is what it says. You're seeing it on the screen, but but I want to read it because it's so important. The nation is on the march. There is no turning back. Your responsibility, therefore, is a very heavy one. And he's speaking to young people. If you fail, you jeopardize our nation. I have given to this nation as its watchwords discipline, tolerance, and production. They apply to you, the young people. To your tender and loving hands, the future of the nation is entrusted. On your scholastic development, the salvation of the nation is dependent. You carry the future of Trinidad and Tobago in your school bags. So that was 1962, and this is now in 2023. So what's our why in 2023? Why are we doing this now? And I submit to you that every one of us involved in the education sector should have one goal. And that goal harkens back to that charge given to our young people in 1962. That goal is to ensure the scholastic development of our young people, thereby securing the future of Trinidad and Tobago. That is the big picture. That big picture will only be achieved. Trinidad and Tobago's greatest educational success will be achieved when we all pull together in the same direction. So I love to give the tug of war analogy, because when you're doing a tug of war, your team forms up itself. There's a leader who says, put your hands this way, put your feet this way, pull back at this time. And working synergistically, that's the best attempt you can have at winning a tug of war. And that's what we are doing in Trinidad and Tobago. We are pulling together against all of the challenges to be able to achieve our goal, which is the scholastic development of our students, our young citizens, so that our nation's future could be secured. So what's the role of the education policy in all of this? Now that we understand what we are doing together, what's the role of the policy? The policy is our tool for establishing what our vision is for education. And that's important, because if we are pulling together in one direction, it has to be towards something. And that's where the vision comes in. To achieve our vision, we have to have goals. And these goals can be broken up into strategies as we look at how we achieve those goals. And very important would be the indicators of success. How do we know we are succeeding in doing what we are aiming to do? This education policy that is so critical must align with the overarching developmental policy or developmental agenda for Trinidad and Tobago. So if we look at what that developmental agenda says about education, and of course, our developmental agenda for Trinidad and Tobago is called Vision 2030. If we look at what that says, it says Trinidad and Tobago will have a modern, relevant education and training system. And it speaks about what that relevance is. And it also speaks about the fact that that relevance has to do with the values and attitudes of our citizens. So if that's what Vision 2030 says, it's easy to see how the vision of the Education Policy 2023 to 27 aligns with that. If you look on the other side of the screen, you would see it. Our vision at the Ministry of Education is to provide modern, relevant, quality, equitable education for all. A very simple vision, because we want everyone in this country to internalize it. Modern, relevant, quality, equitable. That's what we're looking for in education. So this policy, guided by this vision, is our strategic roadmap. And we would have gotten here through our consultations of 2020 and 2021. So when you spoke to us and gave us your valuable feedback, we used all of that and distilled it into what we are presenting to you today, which is the Education Policy 2023 to 27. And that policy covers 8 strategic areas, broad areas: amendment of the Education Act, human resource development, equity in quality education, curriculum reform, revitalization of TVET, some may know it as TechVoc, but it's technical and vocational education and training, harnessing ICT for digital transformation. You've heard us speaking about that all the time, transitioning learners through the education system, and enabling student success. So let's just look quickly at the goals and the objectives under each of these 8 broad areas. So Amendment of the Education Act, and that deals with modernizing our legislative framework. There are things that we need to put into the framework, like the ECCE sector that's not there now, and there are other things that we need to amend in that framework. For example, the penalties for student truancy. So all of this is part of what we are doing in the Education Act amendment. Human resource development, a critical area. We depend on our human resources, and this transformation we are referencing can only take place if the persons involved in the education sector are able to transform along with the plans. So we have to focus on not just our teachers or principals, but also the back end of the ministry, the support of the ministry, our legal department, our human resource department, our communications department, our IT. All of these back end resources support what everyone sees as the front end of the education ministry, our schools, our teachers, our students and principals, and so on. So if we want the entire education sector to be transformed, we have to pay attention to the people, because it's behavior change, it's the mindset change that we are working on. So an important pillar is human resource development. Equity in quality education, an underpinning theme. We want everyone to be able to enter any school and have a high quality education. So this area looks at the institution itself. It looks at our schools. Are our schools prepared infrastructurally? Are they prepared in terms of the teachers, the principals, to offer a high quality education to any child that enters their door? That's what we're looking at here. And so the objectives you would see here speak to assessing that quality education across our schools. And of course, the focus on infrastructure. Curriculum reform, a very topical discussion. It comes up all the time in national conversation, and it featured heavily in our consultations. Curriculum reform is where people are asking, are our students learning the correct things in school? Are they learning to be patriotic? Are they learning the right values? It goes along with the academic, yes, but we have been picking up in our consultations that the country wants to see more being taught to our children, different things, a holistic education. And that's where this area comes into play. So it deals with the 21st century skills, the ICT, the digital technology. It deals with changing the way our teachers teach our students to engage these students who are very different from students of old. So curriculum reform is a huge area of the education policy. Revitalization of TVET. This one is a very important one. We have recognized, long recognized in Trinidad and Tobago, that technical and vocational education and training is important. We've invested heavily. We have a number of post-secondary institutions, MIC, NESC, YTEP, that do post-secondary education in the TVET areas. And we've invested in our secondary schools as well. But it is a fact that over the years, we have not kept up maybe as we should with ensuring that the TVET education was at the cutting edge and that the relationship between our secondary schools and our post-secondary institutions was as strong as it needs to be. And that's where this policy comes in. It speaks to where we are now and where we want to be. And it speaks to the fact that TVET is a very valuable tool teaching our students the kinds of skills that we want them to learn in terms of our holistic development of students. It also speaks to the role of the National Training Agency and how they come in to standardize the TVET offerings across the board. So this one is a very important one for us. digital transformation. You would have heard us speaking about this all throughout 2020, 21. It came to the fore during the COVID-19 experience, how important it is to transform the processes of the ministry digitally. And it's not just the teaching in the classroom, that's important too, because our students are very accustomed in the digital spaces, and therefore we have to get teaching there. However, the back end of the ministry that I referenced earlier, the support systems that keep our schools running, that also needs digital transformation. And so we are working on the digitalization of teacher files. These are the kinds of things that we are doing because it will ensure that the way we do business at the Ministry of Education is a lot more efficient and effective. And there are long-reaching effects of us doing this in the proper way. So digital transformation, quite a lot of objectives under this area because it is critical across the board for the education sector. Transition of learners through the education system. I just referenced some of our post-secondary institutions, MIC, YTEP, and so on. We also have tertiary level, UTT, UE. The fact is, though, that some of our students, our young citizens, do not get their way through primary, secondary, and into the tertiary sector to take advantage of this education, of this investment in education. Our annual budget, about 9 to 10% is dedicated to education, but some of our citizens are not able to access that for different reasons. And we are focusing this area on trying to ensure that all of our students are clear about how they can progress from primary to secondary to tertiary, starting at ECCE, of course, and how they can take advantage of that investment. So we are focusing here on looking at the educational pathway, making sure the articulation arrangements are in place, making sure our students are aware and that we bombard them with that information so that they can take advantage of the opportunities. Our last strategic area, enabling student success. When we looked at equity and quality education, that area spoke to the school. And we spoke about how we were ensuring that every school offers quality education. However, we recognize that even in a school that is offering quality education, students may not be able to capitalize on this because of different challenges they may be experiencing. So enabling student success, this area speaks to the goal of ensuring the success of every student within the education system. And we want to look at students who are at risk of underachievement and the support structures put in place to ensure that they can also surmount those challenges and succeed in the education sector. So we've spoken about these strategic areas, 8 of them. We've looked at the goals under each area. We looked at the strategic objectives that relate to those goals. Now, as we go forward, we have to look at the policy directions. And if you have been able to look at the education policy, it's on the ministry's website. So we encourage you, if you haven't just yet, go on to the ministry's website, take a look at the policy, and you will see that under every strategic objective, in a very granular way, we have outlined the policy directions. It's written that way so that it's clear to understand where we are going in every objective and what we need to get there. Under those policy directions comes sub-policy development. And we're going to look at some of these sub-policies that support this education policy. And these sub-policies deal with more specific areas because education is broad. The policy is broad. So when we come to some very important smaller areas, it's important for us to outline what we are doing there as well and how we are structuring those areas to be able to achieve the objectives and that lead back to the goals and lead back to the strategic areas. So we're going to look at some of those sub-policies that we have developed along with this policy. And of course, from the sub-policy development in a more specific area, then we come to the implementation plans, and that's where we put timelines and we put key performance indicators so we know we are achieving the success that we are setting out to do.
Oh,
So our education policy 2023 to 27 now is an updated version of the policy that went before, which ended in 2022. So at that time, and existing now, were some sub-policies. For example, the inclusive education policy, the National Hair Code, you'd have seen that come recently, the National School Code of Conduct. So there are already existing sub-policies. And as we developed the education policy 2023 to 27, we brought into effect new sub-policies. And some of these are listed: cultural transformation policy, the patriotism policy, the homeschooling policy, policy for registration of private schools, digital transformation policy, and the remedial education policy. 4 of these directly impact school operations. And so we'll just touch very briefly on what these policies are outlined and what they are doing in our education system. So it's the patriotism sub-policy, the digital transformation sub-policy, the remedial education sub-policy, and the cultural transformation through education sub-policy. These will affect what you see happening in the classroom, and for parents, what you may see your children coming home and having to do and how they do it, you will see some changes. The patriotism sub-policy. This is the one that deals specifically with how our children grow to love their country and how they grow in their cultural confidence. This is the sub-policy that speaks to using local examples, that speaks to carrying our children to local places of interest, that speaks to ensuring our children know all of their national songs, that they know their national pledge, that they sing the national anthem. So this is the sub-policy that outlines what we expect to happen so that our children grow in their sense of self-love and they grow in their patriotic responsibility and understand what they have to do to grow and develop their country. The digital transformation sub-policy. This is one that has been in effect even before this education policy has been presented to you in this way, and we have been implementing this. And you know that we have been doing this because you have seen your children come home with devices. That's part of this sub-policy. You also, our principals, our teachers would know that we have been gathering information from the schools to digitize our student and school records. You would also know that we have established the Educational Technology Unit at the Ministry of Education, and that is the unit that is working on the project of e-classrooms for the entire nation. So you'd have seen tenets of this policy already being implemented, a very important part. The teachers will also know that we have been digitizing certain HR functions, the job letter, applications for leave, and we are also digitizing our teacher records. We have been engaged in this for more than a year now, working on the goals of this digital transformation sub-policy. So a very important one and one that we have been implementing already. The remedial education sub-policy, again, the nation would be aware, and you would have seen the implementation of this when we had the Vacation Revision Program last year for secondary schools. We had it this year for secondary and primary schools. You would have heard the ministry speaking about 106 schools of focus that we are placing a lot of attention on and resources into. You would have heard that we hired school social workers and guidance counselors and assigned them to these schools specifically to ensure that we are dealing with the effects of the COVID-19 experience and the learning loss. And you would have seen us rolling out this sub-policy even before we are presenting it here as a part of the overarching education policy 2023 to 27. So this policy is focused on getting our schools that need the most resources and attention what they need in order to enable student success and equity in quality education. The goals of the cultural transformation through education sub-policy, and this is the newest one that we have added, and it's being implemented over the course of 2 academic years. The first year is this academic year, this present year that we are in, And principals would have received the mandate to do some activities mandatorily in their schools. So parents, you may see your children coming home and speaking about the school garden. That's a part of the mandatory activities that we have held out to principals so that all our students can have the types of experiences that will build their holistic development. You may see your child coming home and saying that there's a career day in school if there wasn't one before. And that's another activity that we are saying we must have as we seek to focus students on their transition from ECCE to primary to secondary and into tertiary. So you will see, parents, different things being implemented in our schools as we roll out the cultural transformation through education sub-policy. What you will see in the next academic year is a focus on the curriculum and timetable changes as we focus more time in school on character development, values development, because what Vision 2030 speaks very strongly to is the fact that if we are to progress in Trinidad and Tobago, we must develop citizens with the right values, attitudes, and behaviors that are progressive. So in the cultural transformation through education sub-policy, we are looking at the culture of Trinidad and Tobago, not in the narrowest sense, but the broadest sense. What are the things that we consider right, ethical? What are some of the values that we may have lost along the way that we want our students to concentrate on? These are the things that we will be placing focus on and spending time on. So you will see some curriculum and some timetable changes as we move into the next academic year. What are our indicators of success? Because as we said, if we know the vision, we understand the goals and the objectives, and we know how we are implementing strategies to get there, we must also measure what we are doing to make sure that we are on the right road. Increased school performance. We want to see our schools doing better across the board. We also are looking even at the granular level of student performance. How are they doing in SEA, in CSEC, in CAPE? How are they doing compared to the region as well? That's important. A decrease in student infractions. I think all of us feel very sad when we see fights going viral and so on. We want to see decreases in that type of negative behavior in our students. A decrease in student attrition. We want our students to stay in school. As we focus on their transition through the system, if we have less students leaving school, especially when they reach the age of 16, which is the end of compulsory education in Trinidad and Tobago, then that will show us that we are succeeding in our plan. And increasing school climate positivity. Are our students enjoying being in their school? Do they feel a sense of belonging? Are they happy to be in their schools? That's what the school climate measures. And if we see increases in that, we'll know we are on the right road. Increase in parent, student, and teacher engagement. And this will be clear as our parents join the school and buy in, because that's the triangle, parent, student, teacher, that works together to really give our children the best chance of success. Increased job satisfaction for teachers, principal, and non-teaching staff. That's a critical area. If our teachers are not happy, or principals and administrators, it will naturally affect how they do their jobs. And we want them at their best because we want them to give of their best to our students. So we have to do our best for them. And once we are achieving success, we will see the wider benefits to the society. If we have a better educated citizenry, and we have a very competitively educated citizenry as well, we will see that evidence across the economic sector, the social sector, and very importantly, the effect on crime. So we want everyone to get involved. Those of you who are already watching, you are getting involved by being here with us. However, we want you to also go onto our website and view the policy, read it, and the accompanying sub-policies are there as well. We want you to read it and to understand what we are doing and where we are going, because we need your buy-in. engage with us. Some of you have engaged us already at our open forums. We invite you tonight as well, engage with us. And even after this, you can engage with us on our Facebook page and our Instagram. And stay informed. Follow us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram. And that way you will see the progress the ministry is making. You will find all the education news that you can use to tell persons what's happening in education and take advantage of everything that is being done for the benefit of our citizens. However, we have to face the reality of implementation and manage our expectations. This policy is carded for implementation over 5 years, 2023 inclusive, and as you know, we've already started implementing in some cases, and it goes to 2027, which means that things will not happen at the click of a finger. It is going to happen incrementally over time. And so we must understand that we are changing mindsets. We are looking for behavior change. So this is change in people, in people's behaviors, and it will take time. So transformation is not an immediate process, and we understand that. We are looking to ensure that we put into the system the things that must be there for us to get the outcome. So if we want to get the transformation, we have to put in the professional development for teachers and principals. We have to put in the classroom support. We have to put in the resources for implementation. We have to monitor. We have to collect data. We have to record. We have to evaluate. All of these factors must be put into the pot for us to get out of the system what we need. And we must understand that if we are not putting in all that we are supposed to, then there will be an effect on the outcome, on that transformation that we are looking for. So let us remind ourselves that the success of our education sector and the success of Trinidad and Tobago will be a function of how many hands are on deck. And we need all hands on deck, because as we say, and as we know, education is everyone's business. Everyone involved in any aspect of the education sector really has one shared goal, and that is the scholastic development of our young citizens, because that is how we secure the future of Trinidad and Tobago. The big picture in education is important. And as I close, I want to remind all of us, our greatest educational successes will come when we all pull together in the same direction. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, for that presentation. I know this is the fourth time you are delivering the presentation. Each time I feel you don't need to look at the slides, you can just speak off the top of your head. We continue to get the passion, and we are at the stage now where we are going to open the line to allow persons to send their messages and join the conversation. But before we do that, we have to get the person for them to talk to. So we will, of course, invite our panel into the room. Coming into the room to join the Honorable Minister at the head table will be the Chief Education Officer, Dr. Peter Smith, the Director of School Supervision, Mr. Aaron Ranratan, the Director of Early Childhood Care and Education, Ms. Carol Bagwandin, and the Manager of Student Support Services Division, Dr. Ayinka Nurse Carrington. As they make their way into the room, I would like to encourage the persons who are following, whether on YouTube or whether they are following on the ministry's Facebook page, that they can send their questions on Facebook. They can also join the room, and they will be allowed to ask their questions directly. That process will be managed by Mr. Neil Tobias, who is our moderator for this evening. She will start the conversation off with the panel, and then she will invite persons who are in the queue, so to speak, to join the conversation as we engage in an in-depth conversation around the education policy. The Honorable Minister has set the foundation for the conversation, and I now invite you, the general public following us on our platforms as well as TTT YouTube channel, to join the conversation. And I hand over to our moderator, Mr. Neil Tobias.
Thank you very much, Chair. And a special good afternoon, Trinidad and Tobago. Hello and welcome again to the Ministry of Education's edUTalk series. I am Tennille Tobias Solomon, and it is a signal honor to serve as your moderator for this evening's proceedings. Ladies and gentlemen, it takes a village. It takes a village to raise a child, but it also takes a village to educate a child. And it is against this backdrop that the Ministry of Education has embarked on this very significant and important journey of engaging our village, you, every citizen of this great nation, inviting you to edUTalk with us on this very important and significant education policy 2023 through 2027 that will shape the future of education in our beautiful nation. Ladies and gentlemen, I know that you are eager to engage with our panel, and I'm certain that they are also very eager to engage with you as well. But naturally, before we delve in, please allow me to share with you the ABCs of our engagement today. A, I ask that you adhere to my guidance as your moderator for the evening's proceedings. B, I ask that you be brief and that you stay on topic. C, I ask that you communicate with respect and courtesy. Our technical teams are working very hard in the background to ensure that all of your questions submitted via Zoom and our social media platforms makes its way to me. And I assure you that I will work very diligently to ensure that your questions makes its way to the panel. So now that we know our ABCs of engagement and that you're clear on how we're going to connect with each other today, I turn my attention to our very esteemed and distinguished panel. Please allow me to introduce them again. Certainly we have Dr. the Honorable Nian Gadsby-Dolly, our Minister of Education, our Chief Education Officer, Dr. Peter Smith, our Director of School Supervision, Mr. Aaron Ramratan, our Director of Early Childhood Care and Education, Ms. Carol Bagwandin, and our Manager of Student Support Services Division, Dr. Ayinka Nurse Carrington. Distinguished panel, thank you for sharing your evening with us. And I have to ask at this time, are you ready to edUTalk with us?
Very ready.
And that is a very excited panel. In case you may have missed it, they are gearing and ready to edUTalk with you. Now, for those of you all who have joined us from the very start, you would have heard our Honorable Minister speak to the strategic pillars of our education policy 2023-2027, which are supported by a robust suite of sub-policies which have been designed in essence to actualize the intent of the strategic pillars and priorities. Panel, I'd like to guide our discussion around these sub-policies, starting off with the remedial education policy. And I'll begin first by directing my question to the Honorable Minister of Education. Many students in 2021 and 2022 performed below the 50% and 30% mark in SEA. And this is attributed to the significant learning loss due to COVID-19. These students have now transitioned to secondary school. Can you share with us what is being done to assist them now?
Sure. And I want to say that I think all of us in the country have been so happy to see our grades in the SDA and the CSEC and the CAPE rebound to pre-COVID levels this year. And it's been a function of our students being physically in school, as well as some of the measures that have been implemented at the primary school level to help our students. However, at the secondary level, where we have the students in our secondary schools already, and they would have experienced the learning loss and the difficulty, what we did as a part of the remedial education sub-policy was design a different way of operating in 26 secondary schools. And They are part of our 106 schools of focus. So in those 26 schools, we've asked principals to redesign and to take a close look at the Forms 1 and 2 syllabus and to pitch the level of the syllabus where the students are at to get them up to the level of what was formerly called the primary school leaving program, but it is now called the secondary school. There's a new name for it in the secondary school. And the CEO, what is the new name? It's the lower secondary proficiency examination. So we have renamed that exam, and we've asked the principals in those schools to take a close look at that syllabus and to ensure that the students in Forms 1 and 2 who are there presently now can sit that examination. And the first cohort will be sitting it in 2024. And the reason for this is because we understood that coming out of the primary school, they did not achieve, many of them, the level of literacy and numeracy, most importantly, that they needed to. And without that, it would be difficult for them to progress and to follow the usual syllabus. So we have done that, and so that is where those students have the opportunity to progress their literacy and numeracy skills to the extent that they can do that examination. And there's another purpose. Sometimes we have students who enter secondary school older. So sometimes it may be 13 or 14. And because compulsory education ends at 16, some of these students, they leave school very early. And that's the attrition we are speaking about. And that's what we are focusing on when we speak about transition through the education system. And so that lower secondary proficiency examination, which was formerly called the primary school leaving examination, that certificate allows them also to access government jobs. So we want to ensure that, one, we provide them with a syllabus that meets their need and brings them to a fundamental level of literacy and numeracy. And also, we want them to have that certification by the time they are in Form 2, and there's a window for them to do it in Form 3 as well, so that if perchance they leave school, they don't leave with nothing. They leave with a certification that at least gives them a fighting chance with regards to finding a job later on.
Those are excellent insights, and certainly I must commend the Ministry of Education and you, Honorable Minister, for your vision in this regard, and for ensuring that our nation's students and their futures are in good hands. Staying with the theme of remedial education, in your presentation, Minister, you touched on the great work that has been done around the vacation revision program during the July-August period. Can you explain for us how this program has provided effective remedial support to students?
I would love to elaborate on it, but I think CEO, who has been the driver of the program, would like to give his insights on this as well. So I'll pass it to our CEO.
So good evening, everyone. And let me state, as part of the remedial program, one of the components that we focused on would have been the provision of additional tuition. As was mentioned previously, we know that there was learning loss. And so when we looked at the performance of our students last year, we recognized that we had a significant number of students who have scored under 50%. And so we engaged our parents, we engaged our teachers, our principals, as well as our students. And we provided additional tuition, approximately 4 weeks of tuition in the area of mathematics, English, language arts, writing, as well as reading comprehension. Apart from which, what we would have also done, we would have embarked upon what we refer to as our turn-up campaign or turn-up caravan. So persons who would have seen us for the last couple of nights would have seen us in our lovely blue jerseys, which was our signal mark. And at those sessions, we would have exposed our students to the other curricular activities. We had our student support services personnel who were also interacting with our students as well as our parents. As part of that program, as we said before, we were simply encouraging our parents to dress them, kiss them, and send them to us. We would have provided breakfast as well as lunch to those students who participated in that program. This year, we would have extended the program from the secondary school to also include our primary school students. And so we had close to about 4,000 students participating in the Vacation Revision Program 2023 at this point in time. So it has really been a very interesting program. And like the secondary last year, we would have introduced a VAPA component to our students. And many of our students did indeed enjoy that program. And as we look forward, one of the things we want to do is to make that program even more exciting so that our students, our parents, our teachers, our principals will really come and go board to ensure that our students get that additional tuition which they would have lost as a result of COVID.
Excellent, 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 CEO. I'm really pleased to hear the progress that we've been making in this particular initiative. Tell me particularly around how we've prepared our teachers for remedial instruction. I know that a large feature of the framework, the education policy framework, has been around human resources development. So how have we been preparing our teachers for remedial instruction?
Okay, so last year, what we would have done, our curriculum planning and development division would have provided training to the teachers who would have participated in the VRP 2022. In 2023, as one of the suites of the remedial program involved the engagement of a tertiary level provider who would have provided postgraduate training to over 400 teachers in the area of remedial mathematics, remedial writing, and remedial English language arts. And so they were well skilled, well prepared to really execute that function during the program this year.
Fantastic. So now that we've covered the remedial education sub-policy, I certainly would like the opportunity to transition to a sub-policy that I'm particularly fond of because of the great impact that I know is to come from its successful implementation. And that policy in particular, sub-policy rather, is the cultural transformation sub-policy. And to lead our discussion around that, I will go to our Minister of Education, who is looking at me very intently. Minister, the cultural transformation policy emphasizes revising the school curriculum to prioritize core values and workforce readiness skills. Why implement this policy? Some may argue that the curriculum already addresses the teaching of TNT culture. Why is this significant?
So the first thing I want to clear up is that this culture is in the broadest sense. So it's not culture and arts only. It's the way we think, the way we operate, and our values, attitudes, and behaviors. If you were following the crime symposium, anybody following that symposium, you would have seen different prime ministers speak. And all of them, when they spoke, they mentioned the type of citizen we are creating. They spoke to the fact that the education system is so critical in creating the type of citizen that would drive our country's development. And that's what we are investing the money for. $5 billion every year. We are investing that in education because we are trying to create citizens, the ideal citizens. So we look at it as the ideal Trinidad and Tobago citizen. And that's the goal of this cultural transformation through education policy, because all of those regional leaders spoke to the fact that we have to look more closely at the type of citizen and the character of the citizen we are producing. That is where we have to spend some more time. And in our curriculum, we are very examination and qualification driven in this country, and we do very well. However, Many of us are looking at our crime situation and saying, why are our students resorting to violence when we see the viral videos on Facebook and so on? But it plays itself out in the wider society as well. So those leaders were speaking to why are our citizens choosing violence? Why do we have that level of corruption? What kind of citizen are we creating? And this is where we are speaking about the cultural norms that we are accustomed to and changing those, transforming those into the positive values, attitudes, and behaviors that we want. So this sub-policy really looks at that holistic development of the citizen, of the person, of their character, their morals, their values, their ethics. That's what it speaks to. So in our curriculum now, because we are very examination driven and very qualification driven, it requires us to do other things, make some small timetable changes to focus on the development of the whole person. Because if we don't change what we are doing now, we cannot really expect to have a different result. So it means that we have to change that a bit, spend more time in the classroom during the school day, focusing on other things, focusing on how we build our students to have teamwork, how we expand their minds, how we speak to them about introspection, how we help them to have the tools to deal with challenges and conflicts. We have to literally and explicitly spend time on that. And this is what that sub-policy speaks to. Those curriculum changes, those timetable changes that we have to do, and those will come in the next academic year. This year, we have said to principals, there are some mandatory things we want you to do. We want to ensure that every school sings the national anthem every day and says the national pledge. And you may say to yourself, why does the ministry have to mandate those things? It's because times change, people change, and if things are not written in policies, sometimes these things change as well. And some of the things that we have lost over the years, it has been to our detriment. So this policy speaks to making those granular changes, giving our students different experiences so that they build different types of skills, so that they have a different type of mindset. And it allows us then to really work on this holistic education and the development of the ideal Trinidad and Tobago citizen.
I like that, the ideal Trinidad and Tobago citizen, bringing back the old-time days through this cultural transformation sub-policy. My next question is going to be for our Director of the ECCE, Ms. Carol Bagwandin. Particularly staying with this cultural transformation sub-policy, I'd like to understand how will parents and guardians be engaged in supporting the cultural transformation pillar in early childhood education? And what are some of the anticipated challenges in fostering that type of engagement?
Okay, so thank you very much, Tennille. So at the early childhood level, we say that is the foundation level, and it is the ideal place where we start exposing children and their parents to all these activities. When we talk about engaging parents in this cultural transformation, we are working with them hand in hand to bring about that change. We have our parents who are part and parcel of our curriculum. They are coming in, getting involved in the activities at the center, sharing their different cultural practices with the children. For example, reading stories, telling children about their various cultures, their cultural practices, because we know we belong to a melting pot of different races, different religious backgrounds, etc. It's about teaching respect, the values, the morals, and where else to establish it, but from the early childhood level, so that the children would be able to move seamlessly. The parents setting and being part and parcel of that engagement at the early childhood level, they transition seamlessly into the primary level with the same morals, values, beliefs, that level of patriotism, that level of respect, that level of appreciation for each other, their beliefs, their values, inclusion, and everything else. The challenges, I wouldn't like to focus on the challenges because I am looking at this as an opportunity for parents to buy in. And again, we say is how we sell our product or how we market our product would be able to determine what we get in return. And we are including everyone, we are respecting everyone at the early childhood level in order for this to roll out. So when you're talking about the engagement of parents in the cultural transformation policy, we are looking at embracing everyone, respecting their morals, respecting their values, respecting who they are as a human being. In that way, when we all speak the same language, basically, it would be a seamless, I wouldn't even say a task, but a seamless engagement. I prefer that word engagement because that is what we want. We don't want just involvement. Involvement is totally different from engagement. We want that engagement with the parents, the community members, when they understand. Again, it makes life easier. It makes rolling out and implementation of the policies across the board easier.
Yes. And what are some of the long-term benefits you foresee for our young learners and society at large from the successful implementation of this cultural transformation sub-policy, Director?
Oh, as Minister said it perfectly, the ideal Trinbagonian citizen. This ideal Trinbagonian citizen, respect for culture, respect for self, respect for community, respect for nation. That is what we are seeing at the end of it all.
Thank you very much, Director. Now, my next question, and I'm staying with this team, we do have 2 questions in queue from Zoom, but I ask that you just bear with me while I complete this segment in terms of our cultural transformation sub-policy, and then I'll make a segue over to begin taking your questions. So I just want to stay with our Chief Education Officer, Dr. Peter Smith. Can you share with us around the plan for monitoring the success of these policies?
Okay, so thank you once again. And that's a very important question because apart from the plan, we really want to be able to implement, or even before implement, we refer to a term called installation. We want to install those policies, implement and monitor. And so what we have done at the Ministry of Education, we have put together subcommittees for each one of these policies. And each committee has a champion, and we are charged with the development of that implementation plan. In that plan, we have outlined the activities, the deliverables, our key performance indicators, our timelines, funding, those who are responsible for various aspects, as well as the inclusion of contingency measures, because sometimes we do know we plan one way, but then there are roadblocks that confront us. So we have put in place those contingency measures just in case things don't progress as we like. Apart from which, we do have regular monitoring. You are seeing a team here, and we meet on a weekly basis religiously. We don't skip a week, okay? To get those updates, yes, Honorable Minister. Don't miss. So we have a very robust system at this point. Of course, it's something we can always improve upon, but we do have things at this point in time to really monitor what we want to.
Excellent. Thank you so very much, Chief Education Officer, for those valuable insights. At this time, we go to our questions. We go to our Zoom platform. We do have our first question from Ms. Nikki Rodriguez. Nikki, our first question from Ms. Nikki Rodriguez. Nikki?
Hi, good evening. Are you hearing me clearly?
Ms. Nikki Rodriguez. Nikki?
Hi, good evening. Are you hearing me clearly?
Ms. Nikki.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, Nikki, we can hear
Right,
you.
great. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Good evening to the entire panel. Good evening to the minister. Just want to give a quick introduction to who I am. My name is Nikki, of course. I'm a homeschooling mother of 8, and my question has to do with the homeschooling
All
sub-policy.
right. So
We have been
we have had some technical difficulties. We go to our second question. Our second question is from Mr. Leon Chin. Leon, over to you. Question is from Mr. Leon Chin.
Yes, good evening all. My name is Leon Chin. I am a retired
All
secondary
right, so
school teacher. My name is
we
Leon
are
Chin.
having some technical challenges on our Zoom platform. So in the interim, we will continue a very great and insightful discussion with our panel. And my next question is for Dr. Ayinka Niz Carrington, who
We'd
is our
like to hear
manager,
the first
Student Support
question.
Services. And naturally, we continue to stay with this theme around the cultural transformation sub-policy.
We'd really like to
Dr.
hear the
Liz
first
Carrington, can you
question.
tell us what is the role of parents in these policies?
I think parents have a very, very important role as they are the support for their children. Our parents have to feel valued, and that's very important to them. It's important to their children. These policies create that value perspective, especially when our student support services team of social workers, they would do things like their parenting and education, where they give parents insights on how better ways to help their children to cope through their educational journey. We also have our guidance counselors who support parents through parent information sessions, and they do most of the developmental and preventative work in our schools. Our psychologists also interact with our parents if they have deeper issues that the children have, so helping them to understand the deeper issues. And we also have our special ed persons who do different interventions to help the parents understand the different learning challenges. So in this entire national policy, parents are focused, they are centered, and parents have to play a role in development of their children. And it's important that they understand that they present a certain type of value system for their children through the different pillars of this transformation policy, pillars such as respect, commitment, justice, fair process. And that parenting, as you say, the parent is that gives the child a role model. And a parent may not always be the biological parent. We are encouraging the building of community with the grandparent, the aunt, the godmother. These persons give positive elements in students' lives. So we would like to encourage parents to be part of the transformation, be part of the change, to encourage your children in these positive values, in these positive areas in their schooling, and helping them just to navigate their educational journey.
Thank you so very much for that, Dr. Niz Carrington. And of course, I want to take the time to speak with our Director, School Supervision, Mr. Aaron Ramratan. And of course, in your capacity, you essentially are responsible for the leadership of these schools and overseeing those central persons who would be responsible for taking care of the nation's children when they go to school each day. So, Mr. Ramratan, I'd like to understand from you, how has the ministry begun to empower the leaders of the schools to help drive the success of this implementation?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So what you would have done through the Ministry of Education is firstly to look at the leadership of the school and to ensure that required training and support is provided. We have instituted what is called a school-based model.
Yes.
And through that, schools, the principals will be able to develop school development plans. So school-based management is a critical aspect of school management and school leadership. Coming out of that, school development plans would be an action plan in terms of what schools are required to implement. That will be in alignment with the transformation, cultural transformation policy, and all the key aspects of it that principals can now align their school development plans. In that will also be the calendar of events. in that calendar of events would be the required activities that are mandated. And mandated really meaning a must, okay, to ensure that our students would benefit to the full potential of their own capabilities and their learning needs and aspects. So through that, we can be able to look at all aspects of school operations, ensure that all the required things that for school to function efficiently and effectively, and of course to provide the required training for principals and for teachers, and to build that cohesive collaborative relationship. We also have what is called a district leadership team comprising of school supervisors who would visit the schools and follow up with activities, what is happening, and provide that level of support. Together with the school supervisors, we also have curriculum officers and of course, student support services division personnel as well. They visit together as a team and to provide that level of support to our schools, our principals, our teachers, our parents, and stakeholders in general. So we can build that kind of relationship and ensure that the required goals they are to achieve will be accomplished, and of course to maximize our students' potential and ensure that we see the level of progress that we want for our students in every single school.
Fantastic. And I think what we're seeing Trinidad and Tobago from the discourse thus far is that cohesion across the length and breadth of the ministry. Everyone is talking to everyone, ensuring that there is that organizational alignment to help drive the success of these initiatives. And at the end of it all, ensure that our children are best positioned to succeed. I've been giving the nod that our Zoom is back up and ready, so I will turn over once more to Miss Nikki Rodriguez for her question.
Hi, good evening. Are you hearing me now? Okay, great.
Yes.
Good evening, Madam Minister, and to the rest of the panel. My name is Nikki. As you would have heard, I'm a homeschooling mother of 8 children. We homeschool all the way through secondary school, and I've been at it for the past 14 and a half years, 14.5. I've already graduated from our homeschooling nest 3 students, right? All of whom have gone on to university and all of whom have done exceedingly well. 2 of them have already graduated university and have done so with honors. They are now mature, well-adjusted, morally upstanding citizens of the Republic. As a believer, my husband and I made a decision that we wanted to be able to instill certain values in our children and raise them to be independent, yet critical thinkers and self-motivated learners. We wanted them to be industrious. By God's grace, we've been successful so far. Through our journey, we have produced 3 entrepreneurs who started businesses by the age of 11, 2 of them at 11 and 1 of them at 14. Our second son, by age 13, already had 5 diplomas from accredited online universities in the fields of psychology, criminology, and forensic psychology, to name a few. How was he able to achieve this? It wasn't because he was in the system, unfortunately, right? Or fortunately. He was at home where he was able to learn at his own pace and free to pursue things that interested him. He didn't eventually pursue psychology and stuff in university. He went on to do mass communication. But what he would do, he'd be able to, because of, again, his homeschooling, he had that freedom to get up very early in the morning, complete the US-based Christian curriculum that we had purchased. And then once he was finished with that, he was able to pursue his interest. If someone had looked in on us, they would swear we did nothing all day, because by 10 a.m. he was finished with his, let's just say, his dedicated work for me. He would have completed his book work, after which he would walk around our property, he would climb a tree, do whatever he wanted to do, but he was getting stuff done. Freedom is one of the things we appreciate as homeschoolers. And that is why when people would say things like during the pandemic, oh, well, you're not missing anything, y'all don't go anywhere anyway. We were not unaffected. We were greatly affected by the lockdowns, because life is the classroom. I read the policy, and I even read the article that was recently written in The Guardian. I think it was yesterday, I don't know, I just got it before this session started. And I wanted to let, in case the panel is unaware, I know it was written in the policy, but really and truly, it's for real. Life is our classroom. So that means that we can learn at any time and anywhere. A simple trip to the grocery, for example, might be a chore to some people, but it's an entire lesson in economics, in meal prep and planning for us. Have you
Ms.
ever challenged your children?
Mr.
Uh-huh.
Rodriguez, we ask in the interest of time, we encourage you to get to the
Okay,
question.
getting to the point,
Soprano?
getting to the point.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
sure, sure. This simple exercise teaches things like budgeting, financial planning skills, and stuff that they need for life. I love math myself, but Pythagoras theorem, I can't remember the last time I used it. The fact is that parents are their children's first teachers, and homeschooling curricula could be many and varied. I want to know, based on the policy, how do you plan to test the things that we do? For example, the academic year, I don't necessarily follow our academic year. We just came back from vacation this weekend, right? So we are free to do whatever we do. We pick up and go on trips, and that's also something called world schooling. So I don't understand, for me, how you guys plan on coming in and testing homeschoolers, especially when many of us, well, some of us don't follow the
So Ms.
academic year.
Rodriguez, the panel is prepared to answer the question that has been posed. So the Honorable Minister will take your question at this time. Thank you very much for your contribution.
Mr. Rodriguez, I want to congratulate you because clearly you are doing your business correctly. And the ministry has no intention of changing what a homeschooling parent does. We want to see that breadth of freedom for our children to be well educated. Under the Education Act, however, the Minister of Education, whoever he or she may be, has a responsibility to ensure that all children, whether in a government school, a private school, or homeschool, are being properly educated. And while you may be an excellent example of a good homeschooler, I want to let you know that at the ministry, we deal with a broad gamut of homeschooling. In some cases, it's very difficult to even understand what is happening for the students. And so we have to look at it in a very broad level. So while we applaud your excellent model and what you have been able to do for your children, you have to understand that from our perspective, we see many different models and many different things happening. You have made a decision to homeschool your children, and you have gone through with that. At the Ministry of Education, we see many examples of persons who have decided to homeschool at one point in time, and for various reasons, they change their minds along the way. And when that happens, they try now to get their children back into the system. And there is where we have a lot of difficulties sometimes, because they may not have been following. You are following a syllabus, you are following a particular curriculum, and therefore it was a lot more structured in terms of what you were doing. But we see different things, and we see the difficulty when parents are trying to bring children back into the system, and when the child is not of the required standard based on their age, and then we see the frustration and the blaming of the ministry for not doing what we were supposed to do in monitoring. So as we said yesterday, and I want to reiterate, this is not about putting a policy in place that is overly onerous or that does not understand the fluidity of a homeschooling system. And therefore, though we would have taken on board the comments of our homeschooling association, we have recognized that they have further comments and further clarifications that are required, and we are willing to entertain another discussion so that what we come up with in the end is suitable for all. But we want you to understand also that though you may be a homeschooler of a particular model or standard or type, there are other things out there that the ministry has to deal with. And so the policy that we create has to be able to accommodate all of those different scenarios. So we will engage again the discussion with the Homeschooling Association, and we will look at what needs to be tweaked if there are tweaks to be made in this policy. But we have to consider that we are the ministry, and therefore we have to be all inclusive and encapsulating all scenarios.
I totally understand, but I don't only speak for myself. I have over 100 families beneath me because I mentor quite a number of homeschooling families as well. I didn't get a chance to speak to the other things, but I hear you.
Thanks very much, Rodriguez. I appreciate the comment.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rodriguez, for the feedback. And I do echo the minister's sentiments. Congratulations on your achievements thus far. We move to our next question via Zoom. We have a Mr. Leon Chin. Leon, we welcome your question at this time.
Good evening, all. My name is Leon Chin. I'm a retired secondary school teacher with 37 years of experience teaching in the public secondary school system, and 9 years of teaching experience in a private secondary school after retirement. I congratulate the ministry on trying to improve students' attitudes, because to me, that is the number one reason why students do not learn and they leave without passes. So there are a couple comments I want to make more than questions, but they may be phrased as questions. Number one, I think the ministry needs, first of all, this is my view, first of all, to target the selection of teachers. As far as I understand, you cannot teach what you do not know. You cannot lead where you will not go. More is learned or caught rather than taught. And there's another saying I have here. Oh, what you're doing is speak so loudly, I can't hear what you are saying. And if you don't have the right teacher with the right attitude, you're not going to get very far. I can recall once overhearing a teacher berating her students about their bad behavior, and she was using foul language. I don't know how she expected them to change. The second thing, so number one, teacher selection, I think is key. Oh yes, also under that, I had the pleasure once when the ministry had a mentoring program to mentor a teacher. I really appreciated that opportunity. But I know several other teachers did not want another teacher in their room. They did not want to have to deal with another teacher. But to me, the best way to learn how to teach is to learn with an expert, with somebody who you can learn the right things from. A lot of times, unfortunately, in school systems, people come in with great ideas, eager to teach, and all the other teachers with their bad ways says, where do you think you're going with that? You know, and they discourage them and they turn them off and teach them their bad ways. So number one, teacher, the kind of person the teacher is. You can't, it's very difficult to teach people things that they don't value. You want these teachers to pass on values to students. And if they don't hold those values, they can't really pass it on. Number two, the second thing, reading. You all talk about a remedial program. Great. You all finally doing something about it. But in my view, my respectful view, you don't need remedial if there is nothing to remedy. And if there is something to remedy, then there is a cause in the beginning. And I think you need to get there first and prevent that from happening. I do not think students should be allowed to move up in the school system, primary school system, if they cannot read at a certain level. One of the things I always remember, my father came from China as a 15-year-old boy, not knowing how to speak English. And one of the things I always heard him say is he taught himself to read with a candle under the shop counter and a reader.
Mr. Chen,
he taught himself English.
Mr. Chen, I hear the passion and we appreciate it. However, we really have created these sessions to respond directly to your questions. And naturally, of course, there are several other persons who are in queue as well. So please, I'd encourage you, if you have a question for the panel, I'll invite you to share it with us at this time.
Okay, so number one, are you prioritizing your selection of teachers, the character of the teacher? Not whether they can pass an interview, but their actual character. Is there a way of assessing the character of a person? I feel, I can say that now because I'm out of the system, there are a lot of people in our schools who don't belong there. They don't like children. They only come to teach a subject. They tell the students, don't talk to me about anything else.
I want to thank you very much for your contribution. That is a pertinent question, Minister.
And also, secondly, are you all prioritizing reading and preventing the remedial problems?
And what you are saying is very true, very real, and very valid, which is why the ministry has to do a lot of work in terms of our training of teachers. And we have begun to formalize the way we advertise training as well. Sometimes the training sessions, they were advertised too short in advance, and therefore arrangements couldn't be made and so on. So all teachers did not get the opportunity to take part in the training as we have liked. So we are looking now at not just offering training, but ensuring that there's advance notice and that we repeat certain things every single academic year so that teachers can have a chance to access it all the time. They know when it's coming, they can make the arrangements, and we are able to reach more teachers. In addition to that, you spoke about mentoring, and that's very important. One of the things we are doing is instituting literacy and numeracy coaches into the schools, because we recognize that even when we are training the teachers, when they go back into the classroom, sometimes implementation is difficult. So we have interviewed, and we are at the point of hiring some numeracy and literacy coaches who will go into the school to do this mentoring and this hand-holding. Because yes, we have trained our teachers in remedial English, writing, and math, and we will do more training, having trained some of the key areas, teachers in standard 3, 4, and 5, teachers in forms 1 and 2. So we have done that so that any teacher is able to teach better students who have issues. And so though we are doing that, we're doing the training, we're putting the coaches in because we want to ensure that the training is actually implemented in the classroom. And he also spoke in terms of that mentoring, we want to encourage the development of professional learning communities among our teachers and principals as well. That means that there'll be a group of peers who can speak about their challenges, their successes, and teachers can help teachers in a non-threatening environment. Sometimes when teachers go into the classroom, as he said, not everyone is comfortable with someone coming into the classroom, but if we can get teachers and principals speaking about the same issues together, we think there can be information sharing and imparting. So very, very valid points. And we are working on our primary schools as well as our secondary schools. And so the efforts we are making at the primary school, we want to reduce the need for remedial efforts. But we are where we are now, and we have to face the situation we're in now, and that's why we are dealing with what is presenting itself to us at this time.
Thank you very much, Minister, for those insights. We have another question in queue from Mr. Bruce via Zoom. Bruce? All right, we may have lost Bruce. Mr. Bruce, are you there? All right, so we transition to our next member of the viewing audience via Zoom, Mr. Cohen Benasia. Mr. Benasia?
Hi, good evening, and good evening to the minister and panel. And are you hearing me?
Yes, we can.
Well, it's basically two basic questions, but it's how would these policies apply to schools like Maple Leaf International School and the International School of Port of Spain? And two, has the Ministry of Education engaged with the international schools in with regards to the policies that would affect them? And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Private schools are administered differently. So the Ministry of Education does not have direct control over the administration. They follow different syllabi and so on. So really, this policy is going to be implemented in our public schools, government-assisted schools at the ECCE, primary and secondary level.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Minister. We do have another question via Zoom from Ms. Ria Mohammed. Ria?
Good night, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, thank you very much. Pleasant good evening to everyone. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you all on this Zoom session, giving everyone the forum to express their opinions and, have their answers, their questions answered and so on. Congratulations to you all. I am a parent of a special needs child that attends school in the mainstream system. She's in primary school right now. She has been with Student Support Services since she was in first year. And unfortunately, we have had several issues come up and arise with regard to student support services and them not being, they're not following her individual education plan. We're not having aides being assigned to her in a proper manner. If it is that the aide, something happens with an aide, they move her, then Sophia goes back on a list waiting. And as it goes on, Sophia's education is being, jeopardized at this point. My question to you, ma'am, is with regard to our IEP is a legal document binding student support services and all the parties, including myself, holding them responsible legally for, executing whatever is written there to ensure Sophia's education is being, executed and so on. Now, as a parent, can you please advise me, what am I to do now, being that, she's now without an aide again in the mainstream system? Nobody is being held accountable for it. We're waiting on an aide without any answers, hardly any communication. And then who can we hold accountable for this? That her education has not been, in the forefront or, being upheld. And how can we now, I know that you're saying that we have to have checks and balances and so on, right? But how can we now ensure that these things are being upheld on a parent side, on the ministry side, these kind of things? Because as far as I'm concerned, nobody is following up, nobody is being held accountable, and it's very difficult to even have that process being, like firm and these sort of things. So could you please advise me as to what can we do to ensure that the needs of special needs children are being met in the mainstream system? Because it's the rights of a child, she has a right to be in school.
Thank you very much.
I think I'm getting the drift. You're having a difficulty with your child, the aid, and the communication to you about what's happening there. Now, I don't know the specifics of your situation, and every case is different. So what I would like, can you put your name and contact into the chat, please? We do have the SSSD director here, and what we will do is ensure that someone contacts you after to find out what is really happening and how we can alleviate the situation. However, I am not sure of the steps you may have taken to apprise the ministry of what's happening, if it's just to the principal, but I want to advise persons as well that at the district offices, they can go if they are having difficulties. That's another area that they can visit, the education district offices, to raise issues if they are not being settled in a manner that is satisfactory at the level of the school. So I want to encourage that is your next port of call. I'm not sure where this particular parent, and I'm sorry, she's having these difficulties. I'm not sure where she would have turned to, but just for the advice of everyone, you go to your teacher, you go to your principal, the education district office is also another place that you can go. But please, if you just put your information into the chat, your name and your number, I will ensure that someone contacts you to try to mitigate your circumstances.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you.
Minister, and thank you very much, Ria, for sharing your story with us, and certainly a representative from the Ministry of Education Student Support Services Division will be in touch. We go to our next question via Zoom from Joel Abraham. Joel?
Hi, good evening. A pleasant good evening to the panel and to the Minister of Education. I just want to, this is a follow on the lady before, because I too have been having challenges with student support services. I would have applied for, in fact, for this, let me say firstly, to get my daughter an assessment, it took me 3 years through student support services. I got the assessment. My daughter has applied for, I applied for an aid. There seems to be a lack of communication or miscommunication between the school and student support services. No one knows how to I have communicated with student support, multiple occasions. No one seems to be able to properly direct me as to how I can apply to get a student aid for my daughter. And I assure you that I'm not the only parent having this issue. So if someone could please, if I could please send my contact as well. That
Yes,
would be
please. Have you visited district office on this issue at all?
Yes, ma'am, I have.
As well? Okay. All right. So put your contact and your name into the chat and we will have someone contact you. This is, again, one of the areas that we know must be strengthened with regards to enabling student success and the demystifying of what should be happening as student support services. That's one of the areas that I know we are working on. And I think I'd like to have the SSSD director address this issue and give some direction to our parents in terms of what should be happening, and if that is not happening, how they can get someone's attention to be able to take care of it.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. To the parents who are having this challenge, we understand and we are constantly working to get the information out there. So for those of you who are having similar challenges with our students' support services in terms of having aids for your children, you can send an email also, apart from contacting the district office. You can reach out to the SSSD at Student Support Services at the Ministry of Education.com. You can also call any of the ministry's numbers and they will patch you over to the SSSD first floor office. You can reach out to the teachers. Please inform the teachers so that they can contact the SSSD staff in the school. Sometimes the teachers are not aware, so they can't let the staff know that there's an issue. We go through a process. It's a process called SBIT. So when a teacher recognizes a problem with a student or a parent recognizes that there's a problem with a student, it is flagged to the school-based intervention team where that student is going to be referred to the Student Support Services Division if all strategies are not accomplished at the class stage. In terms of our student aids, we have a high demand for student aids and we continuously work on providing that support for our parents. So we encourage you as parents to reach out, let the school know, let your teachers know, let the principals know, so that the SSSD staff in the school can be alerted so that we can provide the necessary support. Again, as my Honorable Minister stated, please put your contact information in the chat and we will ensure that an officer contacts you to help you to rectify your situation as soon as possible. But we do understand it's an area that we need to continuously work on, and we ask you all to be patient with us as we try to develop this area for the best interests of all of our children.
I also want to encourage parents. We do have an active Facebook page that is monitored by our communication staff. So if there is an issue, that's also an avenue that you can put something onto our Facebook page and we will be able to see and address the issues, because we know that we have, it's a very broad and big ministry. We have over 250,000 students. So we are going to have, in some cases, slippages. And so we want to ensure that we eliminate those as quickly as possible. So through the district office, or there's also the Student Support Services email, and we will put that up on the website, the Facebook page as well, so that you can see that email and also our Facebook page. So if there are issues, we ask you to let us know through these media so that we can better help you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. At this time, we go back to our discussions around the education policy framework. Of course, as you know, the education policy is supported by a robust suite of sub-policies. Thus far, we have discussed the remedial education sub-policy. We have had some discussion around the cultural transformation sub-policy. I'd like to turn the attention of the panel at this time to the digital transformation sub-policy. And my first question will be for our Honorable Minister. Now, Minister, the digital transformation policy, as you would know, envisions an education system that promotes digital fluency and continuous learning. Can you tell us, are schools and the curriculum equipped for a digitally transformed education system?
So we are working on that bit by bit. So the last academic year, we would have outfitted all of our secondary schools with Wi-Fi throughout the schools and most of the common areas in the schools. So we would have done that project last year. This year, we are working on the Wi-Fi in all of our primary schools. Now, we have 134 secondary schools, but we have about 435 primary schools. So it's a bigger project, but we are working on our primary schools as well. Now, a number of these schools do have Wi-Fi, most of them. However, to increase the bandwidth so that you can get Wi-Fi in the common areas and so on, and all over the school, that is the project that we are working on. So that's one aspect. Another thing that we have to consider is the electrical upgrade of some of our schools. Because if we want to use more devices in schools, it means that there are more persons coming to plug in. So just that fundamental issue, in some cases, will require electrical upgrades, more plugs in the classrooms and that kind of thing, making sure that the system can handle more load. So all of that is in as a part of it. Another thing that's very important is the terms and conditions of our teachers. And it is a fact that the position right now with tutor is that the using the digital mode should be a part of the terms and conditions of our teachers. So we are also working along that front, tutor and the CPU, so that we can get that as a part of the system, so that if a school, for example, has to close for any reason, then our teachers can seamlessly go into the online system. Some of them do, some of them don't, but we want to standardize that across the board. So that is also a work in progress. Our teachers over the COVID experience, one of the good things is that we were forced to train our teachers and offer multiple sets of trainings for our teachers at different levels in digital pedagogies. So quite a few of the teachers, I mean, in every course that we offered, it was oversubscribed. So our teachers have the appetite for using the digital pedagogy because they want their children to learn. They want to engage them in better ways. Every teacher wants, the class to learn and to enjoy and to understand. So we've done a lot of training, but we continue to do training in digital pedagogies so that our teachers are prepared to do that. Our e-classroom system, where we want to ensure that we organize the access to the digital classroom and the information that is there. We are working on that. We've been working on that for over a year. It's a complex system, 250 users, 13,000 teachers. So it's quite a project. So we're working on the school learning management system, which is building out the e-classrooms, and the student management system or the school management system at the same time, because the information, the digital student records and teacher records, we are using that to build out the e-classrooms. So it's a work in progress. The transformation is not going to be immediate, but we are well progressed along the pathway of getting that digital ecosystem organized in such a way that our students and teachers can benefit the most from it. And of course, the provision of devices to teachers and students, we have been doing that. We have been able to provide 71,000 devices thus far, and every academic year we continue to provide more to our students and teachers. And of course, we employ the means test to assist us in distributing to those who will not be able to afford it otherwise. So it's a multi-pronged strategy, and we are proceeding along all of the areas so that we get to that point during this implementation period of our digitally transformed classroom.
Fantastic. And one thing you can be certain of is that when you pose a question to the Minister of Education, she's going to be thorough and complete, and she's going to give you all the information that you need. Minister would have answered at least 2 of the other questions that I had tabled here on the digital transformation sub-policy team as well. But thank you very much. And again, congratulations to the ministry for the continued strides that they have been making in this area. Now, we do have some more questions via Zoom. So I'll segue at this time and I'd open the floor to Mr. Clarence Mendoza. Mr. Mendoza, you can share your question with us at this time.
A pleasant good afternoon to our minister, the panel, and to you, the moderator for this afternoon. My question and statement is based on patriotism. And I would have gone through the document there. And basically, for me, on the patriotism side, we speak of the national anthem and so forth. But what I'm not seeing is our national flag. And I would have put this question in the chat. Our national flag is nowhere to be seen. And I want to say 90% of our schools flies no national flag anymore, Madam Minister. And I think it's something that we need to get back in our schools. A couple schools do have the national flag, but it's pink. It's burnt out by the sun. And I really think that our national flag should be in our schools again, flying high, up at 6, down at 6. Our students learn to fold the flag, and so is the MPS guard, who has the responsibility to take down the flag, put up the flag, as the case may be. I also want to say that even my good minister, being on the podium for 2 days with no national flag behind your back, I find it rather strange. Knowing the caliber and the business you are doing, I was looking for that. So I'm not bashing the communication team. They're doing a fabulous job. And I want to thank you for bringing out such a policy and coming out on foot for the last 2 days to articulate what no other minister of education has done. I must make that categorically. No other minister has ever stand forward and articulate whatever policy going forward. So I thank you for bringing that to us, the public, and look forward for more consultation. Thank you.
Mr. Mendoza, that point is well taken. That point is well taken.
Thank you very much for your insights and contribution. We continue to value all the contributions of our listeners, and we encourage you continue to share with us via Zoom, via the chat platforms that we have on our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I invite at this time Ms. Joanna Garraway to share her question with us. Joanna? All right. So while we await Joanna's response, Joanna, please feel free to call in again via the Zoom medium. I would stay with some of the points that have been raised by our previous caller, particularly around the patriotism policy. And Minister, my question for you in particular, it's around how important or significant is the patriotism sub-policy, and what impact do you anticipate it will have on students' sense of citizenship and our society at large?
I think the general underpinning is that we want our students and our citizens to understand the responsibility they have to build their country, that patriotism requires action. And so a simple thing like littering, we always speak about it, but we see so many persons littering all over the country. And it's simple, but it's fundamental, because sometimes you don't recognize that by doing that, we are degrading our country. And so we want our citizens to have that sense of love for Trinidad and Tobago, that desire to build Trinidad and Tobago. If we look back at what our first Prime Minister said to our young people, to understand and really have a sense that we are responsible for the future we create. And so we don't just live mindlessly. We live, and everything we do comes and harkens back to building the country that we want and the country that we love. We go to other countries sometimes and we admire how they are kept. We admire how they are so well organized. But when we come to our country, we don't have that same approach. And it also stems from the fact that we are often so negative about Trinidad and Tobago and so negative about the things that, may not be all 100% good. However, we don't take many times, to look at how far we have come and to appreciate that success and to want to build more of Trinidad and Tobago. So if we are to reach to developed nation status, if we are to progress along that developmental agenda, we need citizens who are willing to do the work of building this country. And so that patriotism policy, sub-policy, speaks to that type of development in our citizens. We love our country. We respect our country. We want to build our country. And in everything we do, we will try to promote a better Trinidad and Tobago. So that's at the underpinning. And when Mr. Mendoza spoke about that flag, may take some financial, but certainly it is something, because we want our citizens not just to feel patriotic around Republic Day and Independence Day, but to understand that even in our little actions, our patriotism can make a big difference.
Indeed, indeed. And it's so good that citizens can engage in this type of dialogue directly with the leaders responsible for making the changes that impact our nation's children. So again, thank you for your continued contributions. Our next member online is Ms. Fiona Perkins. Fiona, we invite you to share your questions with us at this time.
Good evening, everyone, and allow me to thank you for this session, very informative, and allow me to commend you for all the work you have been doing, because I know it can't be easy because there's so much to be done. I want to, my question is on two areas, one pertaining to aggression and violence in school and the preparedness of the school to be able to deal with these situations, and two, the ease of partnering with the ministry to be able to address some of these issues, especially through members of the private sector who happens to be qualified enough to assist. Now, we all understand that crime has been increasing in the country and it affects everyone. A number of high schools more so than the others. We have seen teachers having to disarm students with cutlass. We have seen a security officer trying to disarm someone with a firearm, even though it was unarmed. We have seen fights where students having to see persons who have been murdered in front of their school. So it is affecting everyone. Teachers have been told that if there were aggression and violence observed, they should not intervene in these situations. And I understand that perspective. The Student Services Division are listed as a first point of call in case violence is observed. The challenge, however, and this is getting to the point, teachers have not been trained in the management of aggressive behavior, neither have they been trained in being able to respond effectively to these situations, which indeed can be dangerous. Student Services Division members have not been trained either. The security officers, based on how they're acting, have not properly been trained in the use of force, nor are they equipped to manage the violence we're seeing. And therefore, my question is, given what's happening regarding violence and aggression in the school, and the absence, I believe, and I hope I can stand corrected, of a security policy through the Ministry of Education for schools, what plans do you have in place, one? And two, can it be much easier for persons or companies like myself who own a security company to join with you or partner with you, just as recommended by the president of the country, recommended by the UN General on UNESCO? How can we make it better and safer for our students in school, and how can we help to do so? How can my company and other private sector members help you, the ministry, to improve safety within our schools?
Thank you so much. I think that's a wonderful question. It allows us to bring some concepts in that are very important. So let me start by saying that the Ministry of Education views education in its broadest sense as everyone's business. So we are so happy to hear you speak about being willing to partner with us. And I want to encourage you to put your information into the chat, And I can tell you that our communications department will be in contact with you because we are always very ready to partner. And it's one of the things that we have worked on since 2020, making it easier for the ministry to interact with our corporate citizens, our international bodies, and our civil organizations. So I want to encourage you, please put your information there so that we can explore how we can partner, because we do have a youth mentorship program that we have been rolling out in our schools. It started really last academic year, and we are continuing it this year. We have brought on board the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force and the police service, and we are going into our schools of focus, our 106 schools, and really speaking to our students. And we are happy as a part of that program to bring in whatever you have to offer, resources you have to offer for our school. So please put your information there. Now, you touch on a very important topic in terms of what are we doing to equip our teachers, our students with the skills that are required to be able to deal with conflict and so on. So we want to use this opportunity to explain what we have been doing on the restorative justice side, and I'm going to ask our SSSD director to elaborate on that in terms of the pilot going on at 11 of our schools.
Thank you. So in 11 of our schools of focus, we have what we call the Restorative Practices Program that is aimed at building community, repairing the harm in our schools. We understand that crime and violence have taken over our society, and the school is a microcosm of that society. And in that mode, we are now looking towards repairing that harm. So this particular program looks at managing conflict, repairing harm, and building community through what we call the respect model, which is one of the main pillars of this program. From the months of May to July, we trained over 400 persons in this particular program of restorative practices, from the principals, vice principals, teachers, school supervisors, SSSD staff, safety officers, and our students. Over 110 students were trained in restorative practices and specifically in mediation. This program is aimed at creating safe schools, empowering our youths, and giving them a voice. We recognize that our students are experiencing a lot of frustration and trauma, and through this program, we are using different mediums. For example, what we call a restorative circle is an example of one of the practices that we use. And that practice allows students to say how they feel, to express what is going on in their lives. And one of the bigger pictures in this program is that it needs to be something we are committed. So apart from this, we are going to be facilitating these 11 schools with what we call the restorative facilitators, they are going to be guiding the practice of this program. We expect that this program will bring a reduction in the infractions that we see. It will also give our students a voice, and it would also give us as the adults a time to listen to all that is happening around us and give that spirit of inclusion and cohesiveness as we build the community and repair the harms in our schools. Apart from that, we also continue our interventions with our school social workers and our guidance officers with their preventative care of our students in dealing with the issues of crime and violence in our schools.
Thank you, Dr. Denise Carrington. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are coming to a close of what has been the fourth leg of the Ministry of Education's EduTalk series. But before we say goodbye, I'd like to invite our Honorable Minister to share final remarks.
I would just like to thank everyone that interacted and engaged with us over this time. Some of you would have contributed, and we thank you for your contributions. You would have pointed out areas that we can focus on, additional areas, and we're very grateful for that. Because the point of having this conversation is to expose to you what we are doing, where we are heading, and to encourage you to give us your feedback, because your feedback is important. What we do here at the ministry is to benefit the entire country. So any way that we can do it better, we are willing to get that level of feedback and recommendation. We want to thank those of you who are willing to partner with the ministry to achieve our goals. Education, as you say, is everyone's business, so we need all hands on deck. So it's not just the business of the principals and the schools or the teachers, it's corporate Trinidad and Tobago, it's civil society, it's all of us, our parents, everyone, every citizen has a stake in education, and we are thanking you for being there throughout the years for the Ministry of Education. As we make these changes, as we seek to achieve the transformation that we want to achieve, it is going to be important for all of us to continue to work together. Remember the tug of war example. We are pulling against the tide. And if all of us pull together with the same energy, the same passion, and we pull in the same direction, we are going to achieve the transformation that we are looking for. Not immediately, but over time. We at the ministry are dedicated and committed to doing the work that is required to do this. We've already started, and we will continue to work seriously, to work hard for the transformation that we expect to get. So we thank you. We invite you on board with us. Remember, the policies are online. We ask you to take a read, take a look at what we are doing, follow the ministry on our website, on our Facebook page, on our Instagram, see where we are heading, and most importantly, give us your feedback and let us work together to transform not just the education sector, but to transform Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you for your support.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I wish to congratulate everyone who logged on and joined in on our MOE edUTalk virtual forum for this evening. This is the fourth in the series of 5, and we have had a very engaging discourse so far. Education, as Minister said, is everyone's business, and as such, the objective is to provide a space for all our stakeholders, our parents, our teachers, even our students, and we go to our students tomorrow. And tonight, members of the wider population to share their ideas, their concerns, their recommendations on the plans and projects, many of which we have seen implemented. And while it's simply a reinforcement for others, we know for many, 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 it's new and it's something that they have to get accustomed to. Some of the plans and projects are already being introduced. So as we get your feedback on how to make them better, we encourage you to log on, as Minister said, send the messages to our social media platform. And others, the change is not going to be easy. Transformation is not easy. Growth is hard and requires dedication, conviction, and a mindset of success as the only accepted outcome. To the moderator this evening, Mr. Neil Tobias, thank you so very much for managing the conversation. You did an excellent job, and I'm sure there's a virtual round of applause happening at this point in time. Your expertise is very much appreciated with the panel this evening. To the edUTalk panelists, I want to refer to them as the dream team now. The Honorable Leanne Gadsby Dolly as the leader and visionary, the driver of this transformation, our CEO, Dr. Peter Smith, our Director of School Supervision, Aaron Ramratan, our Director, Early Childhood Care and Education, Carol Bagwandin, our Manager, SSSD, Dr. Ayinka Nurse Carrington. We have one more to go, and I think we've saved the best for last. We meet with 400 students tomorrow, students who go to government and non-government schools, and we are very, very anxious to get their feedback on education, on the education policy 2023-2027. I want to thank our partners. We were on TTT's YouTube channel. We have had the Caribbean Sign Language Center here with us, and I want to thank them for their continued support, not only today, but every event that we have, they are there working with us. To the communication team, you see, I called for the flag, and the flag arrived. So, Mr. Mendoza, the flag is here. Again, to our suppliers, we thank you very much for continuing to provide professional support. None of these sessions would be made possible without everyone's involvement. We have had our PS. I will tell you, she went home and she came back to be part of this evening's program. And I want to thank her. She has continued to support and provide whatever we need at the 99th hour to make sure that it is a success. Both PS Williams and PS Meyer, who unfortunately could not be here. I encourage you to continue to share your comments, make your recommendations, and hold us accountable. Exchange your ideas with the ministry on our social media platforms. You can email us at educationpolicyinfo@moe.gov.tt, message us in the inbox on Facebook, on Instagram, and continue to reach out because your views are important to making this policy a success. With that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for your participation. Good evening and God bless.